I'll be talking about my paper, Improving Management Through Worker Evaluations, Evidence from Auto Manufacturing. This is joint with Shing-Yi. Research has documented large differences in firm productivity across firms, which may be driven by management practices. Indeed, this may reflect the fact that firms deal very differently with the fundamental principal-agent problem between firms and managers. There's some theoretical models that suggest that financial incentives given to managers may be key for solving this kind of moral hazard problem. However, other empirical research has suggested the potential for other channels to improve management, not just through compensation, but through things like training, feedback, or consulting. Feedback in particularly can be a very cost-effective approach. Our project introduces worker evaluations of managers in a randomly selected set of production line teams at a large car manufacturing plant in China. It may be the case that workers have private information about the quality of managers, and that feedback can help managers do a better job. Our main research question is, what is the impact of workers providing regular feedback about their managers on the outcomes of workers, managers, and firms? To do this, we partner with a large car manufacturing firm in China. Our sample includes 3 factories at one plant, encompassing 76 production teams, each of which has its own team managers and over 1,200 workers. Our experiment was randomized at the team level, where teams had a 50% chance of being randomized into our treatment. In the treatment team, workers evaluated their managers each month for 8 consecutive months. They were asked to answer specific questions about 5 components of management: organization, adaptability, fairness, openness to suggestions, and empathy. In control teams, nothing changed. The status quo continued, where workers didn't provide any feedback about their managers. Our research team went on site and collected these evaluations in a manner so that they were completely anonymous. The worker never wrote their name on the form, and team managers were not present when this information was collected. Only aggregate statistics were presented to the firm and to the manager. The total scores were posted each month on the team bulletin board, where all the other team performance metrics were posted each month. In terms of data, we have 3 sources of administrative data: individual level performance metrics, team level performance metrics called key performance indicators, or KPI, and data on whether the worker left the firm by the end of the survey. We also collect our own survey data at baseline and follow-up, including questions about worker happiness, job satisfaction, and their mood, to help us understand the mechanisms of the effects. Here's a summary of our main results. We see a large increase in worker retention in treatment teams relative to control teams. However, worker productivity among those who stay doesn't change significantly. Team KPI does go up significantly. How do we reconcile these results where team KPI increases when individual productivity doesn't increase? This can happen because turnover is actually very costly to teams, and the newest workers are very bad at the job and need a lot of training. Reducing worker turnover increases team KPI. Worker job satisfaction, happiness, and mood all increase, which is consistent with the idea that they're staying at the firm longer because they're happier in their jobs. We consider many mechanisms in the paper, and I'll refer you to the paper because I don't have time to discuss them all here. I'll just say that we believe the results are primarily driven by changes in the behavior of managers who get this feedback. Managers in treated teams encourage their workers more, criticize them less, express more empathy towards workers, and socialize with their workers more on social media. In conclusion, we find that allowing workers to evaluate their managers leads to improvements in a lot of things, with no outcomes getting worse as far as we observe. Manager pay, including monthly bonuses and semi-annual bonuses, are linked to team-level performance. So one key question is, why weren't they being nicer to their workers to begin with if that would lead to better KPI and to better compensation for the managers? This is what a rational economic model would suggest, that managers would choose their managerial inputs to retain workers and maximize team performance. However, it could be the case that they don't do this because they make some kind of mistakes. For example, a behavioral bias like present bias might explain such a mistake. Alternatively, it can be the case that managers cannot directly solicit this feedback from workers. If managers tried to get feedback themselves, workers might not feel comfortable reporting honestly, and that might explain why managers can't get to the better outcomes themselves. Just to conclude, the intervention also passes a kind of market test. After seeing the results from our study, the firm expanded the worker feedback system to all plants covering 20,000 production line